A pastor tackling mission in one of America's biggest cities, and Pastor Mike Ryan talking about the challenge of urban mission, coming up next on Global Mission Snapshots.
Just before he went up to heaven, Jesus gave us a command. He gave us a mission. Jesus said, "Go. Go unto all the world, telling them of His love." This is our mission. This is our global mission.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on Global Mission Snapshots. I'm Gary Krause. Every week on Global Mission Snapshots, we look at what's happening in frontline Adventist mission work around the world. One of our biggest global mission challenges is finding ways to reach the growing masses of people in the big cities of the world. On today's program, we'll be talking with Andres Flores, a pastor and church planter who's taken on the challenge of urban mission in the heart of Chicago. And he'll be joined by Cindy Chamberlain, Communication Director for the Adventist Church in Illinois. And we'll also be talking with Mike Ryan about the Adventist Church's mission to the city's plan. What will be happening over the next few years? But first, let's watch a video that we made a few years ago that highlights some of these challenging urban areas.
From the bustling harbor in Sydney to remote tropical lagoons, from busy city streets to jungle landing strips, from modern medical facilities to village clinics, welcome to the South Pacific Division. The South Pacific Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church includes Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the islands of the Pacific south of the equator. While small in terms of Adventist membership, the South Pacific Division occupies a large geographical area. The majority of Adventist members are scattered across thousands of Pacific islands and 20 million square miles of ocean. Here are islands such as Nauru, Fiji, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Over the years, Adventist missionaries have answered the call to mission to the islands. Gary Krause, Director of Adventist Mission, talked with some of these missionaries about their experiences. One of these missionaries is Fran Newman, a missionary nurse who went to Atuifi Hospital in the Solomon Islands in 1969.
It was only a little hospital then,
Yes.
compared with the way it is now. It was a 90-bed hospital. But when I did my monthly returns, we usually had an average of more than 100 patients a day.
I'm sure.
But you didn't turn anyone away if they'd paddled their canoe for several days
No.
to get there. They were happy to sleep wherever they could.
Mrs. Newman remembers meeting an old friend for the first time while in the Solomon Islands.
Because probably one of the most exciting things that I had experiences that I had while I was there, I went up to the hospital one morning and then I saw a name of a patient that had been admitted overnight. His name was Dani Wanasuka. And when I had been training at the SAN, I had had a pen pal at Betty Karma School by that name. And it turned out that it was my pen pal.
What a small world.
After all those years.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and so we went up to his village, which was up in the hills, and there had been people coming down. But I guess because there were no roads on Malaita, it was either walk or paddle your canoe to get there.
Travel on the islands was a bit tricky sometimes, as Mrs. Newman can tell.
And that's where I was taught to paddle a dugout canoe.
Okay. Which is a handy skill to have.
Well, yes, because I was all right in the canoe as long as I didn't breathe. As soon as I breathed, I fell out, so I gave the children at the school a lot of laughter.
I'm sure you did. And they're ready to laugh too out there.
Another of those missionaries to the South Pacific Islands, Bert Godfrey and his family, went to the Solomon Islands in 1964.
We had a little boat or at least we were supposed to when we got there. It was out of commission for a while and we only had canoes, and I had about a 2-month-old daughter, which was a little nervy, but at any rate we got the old Kema back, and we were able to travel around in the little ship called the Kema.
Now, did you go to the Solomons with the baby?
She was just a few days old when we left. Weeks old, I suppose would be better, yes.
Now, that was a big decision to go with a newborn child. I mean,
it was.
The medical care wouldn't exactly be what you might wish for.
We were many hours away from the nearest medical help. And I must confess that I had an awful shock when I walked on the island. I walked up to the big school there, and there was a plaque at the entrance to the school that told the story of a missionary who came out with his young wife, and she was buried there. And I thought, what have I done?
Sure.
But the Lord was good to us, and yes, we had no problems whatever. Everything went very, very well.
Mrs. Lynn Anderson went to Papua New Guinea in 1968, serving first at Togoba Leprosy Hospital, and then working on a floating clinic, traveling part of the 700 miles Sepik River.
So we spent virtually 2.5 years just doing clinics up and down the river as far as we could in day trips. We did at one stage do clinics the full 200 miles of the river, which we virtually did later on the Pathfinder. That was our section of the river, because the Sepik River is 700 miles, and that was just phenomenal. Doing clinics for the children all under 5 for immunisations, then dealing with all the pregnant mothers up and down the river. As well as that, we did all the schools on the river, and some of them had 200 students, and there was a lot of schools. Some very big villages, and would take us anywhere from 6 hours to do a clinic. So that was quite an experience. We actually did the whole river and actually lived in the villages, all our section of the river I mean, and lived in the villages at one stage and did it over a period of 3 months so that we could give them the immunisation. I guess one of the things that I can say about was when I had a child that I actually lost. It actually died. And when I went back and did the clinics, the people said to me, the women said, we never thought white women's babies ever died. And that brought the women and me much closer. Had the first one while I was on the Sepik. She went out for her first clinic when she was 2 weeks old. And she was with me for the clinics every time until she was about 2, and then that's when we went back to Togoba.
Now, looking back on your mission service, any regrets?
No, nothing at all. But I just didn't do medical work. Wherever I went, I was always in charge of the children's Sabbath schools. And that was a big thing in my experience, because children would come, some of them up 12, 13, 14, and you'd run this Sabbath school, not Adventist, but they just enjoyed it. And I just hope some of that has made a difference in some of their lives.
Thanks to the love and dedication of missionaries like these, the foundations were laid for a church that would grow rapidly on the islands. Yet there are still mission challenges here. There are still many areas that are remote, where medical care and spiritual resources are scarce. For years, the Adventist Church has operated clinics in these remote villages. As time passed, the facilities grew old and they were ill-equipped. In 2007, the Adventist Church in the South Pacific launched Adopt a Clinic, a program to team each Adventist church in Australia and New Zealand with one of the region's clinics, which range from bush huts to modern-style buildings. Now they're looking at building some new clinics in villages that are in need of some type of medical care. Today, mission planes are helping ferry people and resources to these remote areas thanks in part to worldwide support of the 13th Sabbath offering several years ago. These planes have a tremendous impact on the lives of people living in the areas they serve. Yet the mission challenge remains. One of the major challenges is reaching secular and postmodern people in the major cities of the region. including the secular and postmodern people of Australia and New Zealand.
And even though I'm back here in Australia, I think our church, we've got a mission field right here in Australia. And I'm pleased that I still work outside the church and I can witness to the people that I work with, and I hope I do the right thing.
Please pray for mission in the South Pacific Division, and thank you for your support of the mission offerings.
More than 100 years ago, Adventist prophet Ellen White said that the Seventh-day Adventist Church had neglected the cities. I wonder what she would say today. Working in the cities in mission can be very, very challenging, and I'm delighted that Andres and Cindy can join me today. Andres, you are planting a church in Chicago, and Cindy, you represent the conference, which is the organization that oversees churches in the Illinois area. First up, just describe briefly, Andres, what is your mission in Chicago?
Our mission is to bring the presence of Jesus, to reveal Jesus in the city of Chicago, his personality, his love, his passion for the urban area, for especially particularly for young adults in the demographics between 18 and 29 years old, and bring his message, his love in a practical and relevant way for young adults, postmoderns, hipsters, and the like.
Wonderful. Cindy, you recently visited this project. Tell us, what did you find?
Well, when I visited, I went downtown Chicago, and I realized instantly how valuable this project was, because we are the only Adventist presence in that area. Without our presence, there would be no representation from our church in that area.
Now, when did this project start?
The open house officially was
in May of 2012.
2012, so
Yes.
it's relatively new.
very new.
When you arrived there, Andres, I guess you studied the neighborhood to try to understand what sort of people are you connecting with?
We're connecting with all sorts of people, mainly young adults, again from 18 to 29. That's our main demographic. But we're reaching, our objective is to reach to the local dwellers in the area of Wicker Park. Wicker Park is a neighborhood known, is very artistic, highly interested in music, postmodern, young professionals. So this is the people we're trying to reach, and we're seeing people coming to our church as a result of some of the activities we're doing in the community as well.
Wonderful. Now, Cindy, when you visited, I guess everybody was wearing suit and ties?
No, it helps for the audience to remember this is a completely unchurched area. Completely unchurched. These are people that would never go into a traditional church.
So these are people who come from backgrounds of unbelief, or people who've never even thought about God before in a serious way, and so that they're coming into a Christian environment for the first time. So, Cindy, when you visited, did you get to meet any of the people?
Yes, I actually met many of the people. One was even an ex-gang member, and that had been his particular territory, and now he's reclaiming it as a Christian from a whole different worldview.
Wow. How did you meet him, Andres?
He was invited by one of the core group members. So we have a core group, a core team, and those are the missionaries that help the church plan get started.
Wow.
So he was invited, and now he's invited more friends around his age and interest, and they're now coming to Jesus as well.
So let me get this straight. He's a gang member, and he gets invited into a Christian environment, and he liked it. Is that what happened? I mean, how did he stay? I mean, why didn't he say, "Oh, this is just rubbish," and go? I mean, what happened?
Well, you know, when people like this are absorbed, assimilated, because of their relationships, because of love, because of their really seeing Jesus being taught in a beautiful way, they just have this passion to stay there and to bring more people to Jesus Christ as well.
Wow. Cindy, you're a communication director, and you work with administrators who have to make decisions about where we put pastors, how do we keep church members involved, how do we keep them happy. Does this sort of project come in for some criticism?
It certainly does. And let me say one other thing that I saw while I was there.
Yeah.
I saw many of our 18 to 22-year-olds involved, active, and happy. Many are coming even from Andrews University to support Pastor Andreas in his project. They're coming weekly.
This is an Adventist university, what, about 2 hours away?
2 hours away from his church plant in Epic. And I see the church studies, and you do too, where our youth are leaving at like a 9 to 10 ratio. So that's about 90% of our youth that are just exiting our doors and never coming back. So this speaks volumes that they're helping lead. Many are core members and helping lead and very invested in this church. And to see that many of our young people in one spot, I had forgotten how that even looked. That is just miraculous. Wow. And it gives them certainly vision as well. The conference is very much on board and very supportive of this project and trying to give this baby the CPR it needs.
Fantastic. Andres, Cindy, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this exciting story. And to our viewers at home, Urban Mission, there is no easy formula. It can be messy, it can be complicated, it can be difficult. And so often we may see things that we would do differently, but rather than sitting back and criticizing, we need to pray. We need to pray, we need to encourage, we need to support, because men and women, boys and girls' lives are being touched for eternity in urban areas through the ministry of people such as Pastor Andres and his team. Urban Mission is one of the major challenges facing Global Mission today. To talk with me about this is Elder Mike Ryan, who was the first director of Global Mission and is now the Vice President for the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Mike, welcome.
It's good to be here.
In the good old days, it used to be you asking me the questions, and I'm very happy today to be asking you questions.
Yeah. Well, I am happy to be seated on this side, and I don't know that I know the answers, but I'm glad to talk with you.
Okay. Urban Mission, the challenge of reaching the cities, was something that was in the radar of Global Mission right from the start. How did that happen?
It certainly was. I remember back in 1988 and 89 when Global Mission was being planned at meetings down in Cohutta Springs, Georgia. And in those early discussions, and we met there each year for a week putting this program together, cities was part of that discussion from the very beginning. And at that point, we were looking into the future when we knew the day would come when most people would live in big cities. Well, now, of course, that date has come and gone, and now you have about 52, 53% of the world population living in cities greater than 1 million.
Wow. Now, Mike, the World Church is focusing on Urban Mission. It seems to be a priority of administration. What are the plans? Yeah,
of course, that again has its home in Adventist Mission. Yeah. And so I think they still carry the portfolio on that. But obviously, you know, it's something that in our history we have struggled with. If you compare the ratio of Adventists to population in cities, it's a much bigger challenge than if you compare the population and Adventists, that ratio outside the cities. And so we know that we face this challenge. And so in looking at that, we need to put a plan together that the world church understands. And of course, you know, sometimes that's a kind of a difficult thing to do. But very simply put, the plan that has been put together is that the General Conference has selected one city, which is New York City, in which we want to try to provide a model for the world church on how to work in cities. And then we have asked each division, and that's 13 of them, and the one attached union, to select a city. So that would be 14. And then we have asked each union to select a city. Well, that's about 106. And then we've asked each conference. Well, that's 528. So when you look at the entire formula between now and the year 2015, we're hoping to have a comprehensive evangelism program running in almost 650 cities around the world. And so that's a huge challenge. So, you know, that's what lies before us.
Now, Mike, you and I have been working on a project called Centers of Influence, based on Ellen White's counsel. And in New York City, we're planning to have 4 of these established very soon. Describe for us what we envisage when we're talking about Life Hope Centers or Centers of Influence.
Okay. Yeah, some of the challenge in cities is speaking a language and doing things that actually identify with people. And if you read the counsel given to us by Ellen White, and also some of the very basic principles of the Bible, it really instructs us that we need to connect with the community and be decent people to try to make a difference in the community. A Life Hope Center is a center that will operate, and out of that center, it's envisioned that there will be many health programs that will be offered to the community, language programs, literacy programs, community service type programs. And as these programs specifically address needs in the community, people will become interested. They will come and they will attend these, and it will make a difference in their lives. And I feel that these Life Hope Centers will be a way of expanding the pool of people who really don't even know Jesus, and have them take a look and go, oh, this is what Christianity is about, and become interested actually in the message of the Bible. And of course, that's our guide to live by, is the message of the Bible. And that's what we want to try to interest people, because, of course, the man of that book is Jesus. And so that's the purpose of these Life Hope Centers.
Now, Ellen White said that we should have dozens of these in not huge centers, but smaller centers. What is the result that we want to see from Centers of Influence?
Well, obviously, we want to bridge from these activities to introducing people to Jesus and the biblical truths. There's no question that bridge is, we want to make sure that that is built, and that anyone that there would be a possibility of sharing Christ with, we don't want to pass that opportunity by.
Fantastic. Elder Ryan, thank you for joining us today.
It's a privilege.
Viewers at home, Elder Ryan has outlined a comprehensive urban mission plan, reaching people where they're at, not expecting them to come to us, but finding ways that we can go to them and show the love of Jesus in very practical ways, showing the love that can only come from Jesus Christ, and then bidding them to follow Him.
It's early morning before dawn. The Adventist aviation plane is parked in the hangar. Daniel, our pilot, arrives and gets the aircraft ready for its first mission today. Fasten your seatbelts as we taxi to the runway. This is another day of mission service. We are flying northeast over Papua New Guinea at an altitude of 10,000 feet. It's fairly warm in the plane, and it's a gorgeous morning out the window. Papua New Guinea is one of the most culturally diverse places on Earth, with pristine, teeming jungles, jagged mountains, deep valleys, and turbulent rivers. It's one of the least developed and most traditional countries on this planet, where people live much as they have for thousands of years. And we are on our way to a remote place in the highlands of New Guinea to visit a small village. Look down, there it is. We're approaching our first destination. The villagers are always happy to see us. These two children even made model airplanes as a sign of admiration for the aviation service. The cargo is quickly unloaded here, and we are off to our next appointment. The Seventh-day Adventist plane travels the local towns and villages where it is very hard to reach with food, supplies, and medicines for the clinics. By plane, we can cover distances in an hour, where it would have taken weeks in the past. And for some villages, it's the only way in, as there are no roads. On our next stop, we will surprise the people with a very unique gift, a lawnmower. It may seem a trivial tool, but to the local people, it will provide a way to maintain their surroundings, gardens, plantations, and even a clear runway for the plane. They seem very excited with the new gift, and after a simple demonstration, they are equipped to continue the work. On our last leg of our trip, we will pick up bags of crops. The airplane will transport the merchandise to the city and bring back means to provide for this community's survival. Your mission offering supports projects like these every day, and it helps thousands of people to get connected with the Seventh-day Adventist Church and experience firsthand the love of God. Please pray and continue to support Adventist Mission.
If you're watching this program, chances are you enjoy stories of global mission pioneers, missionaries, and mission. So we'd like to send you a copy of the Mission Stories for Kids DVD. If you live in North America, please call our toll-free number 1-800-648-5824 or visit our website and ask for the Mission Stories for Kids DVD or offer number 304. This DVD is not just for kids, it's for parents, it's for grandparents. Don't forget to clearly state your name and your address. Well, that's it for today's program, and I hope that you've been inspired and challenged by what you've seen. From the countries of Asia and Africa to the cities of North America, God's mission work is still moving forward. So on behalf of Adventist missionaries and global mission pioneers and volunteers serving all around the world, thank you for your continuing prayers and financial support for Frontline Mission. Thank you for joining us on Global Mission Snapshots today. Until next time, I'm Gary Krause. God bless.